Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cranked and Ranked, your favorite podcast. If you're thinking to yourself, what? How do you know it's my favorite podcast? Trust me, we know this. If it's not now, it will be soon. Especially
we don't
after
think we know. We know.
we do. We know a lot of things, and we're going to talk about some of those things today. So, yes, this is another year, and we're going to be ranking our favorite albums, and I'm starting that. I'm just getting that out of the way. Our favorites. We're not. This is not when we do top tens like this. It is very personal. It is our opinions and our preferences, and especially with me, I'm going to get this out of the way because there are going to be people be like, "You picked this album, but you didn't pick such and such album." And I'm like, yeah, there's going to be a few of those. But yeah, today we're going to be ranking our top 10 favorite albums from 1985. And as usual, old head, your host, with me as always, Eddie fucking Sparxx.
Hell fucking yeah.
That's your name sounds good with a fucking in the middle of it.
I might have it changed to Eddie fucking hyphenated Sparxx. Get a little dash action in there.
Like your maiden name's fucking and your
fucking Eddie Sparxx.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So 1985. In 1985, you were nowhere near being born.
Negative 13.
I was 7 years old in 1985, but as a lot of you who listen to my shit know, I was already listening to a lot of fucking music in 1985. I hadn't necessarily gotten on board with metal yet. In fact, I hadn't in 85 at all. But I was already at that age where I was like picking the things that I liked and asking my parents to buy me albums and stuff like that. So in 85 is probably the first year that really was a big thing. Because prior to that, it was just like whatever's big, like, Mommy, I want Michael Jackson. And then, they bought me Michael Jackson, not actual Michael Jackson, the album Thriller. That would have been that's I don't know why my brain went there. That's weird. Anyway.
No, that's ignorant.
That's supposed to be Michael Jackson?
It's the South Park caricature of Michael Jackson, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Have you been up my wishing tree?
That was a little creepy. Anyway,
yeah.
But so because normally we'd be all like, well, what were you doing in this particular year? But you were doing fuck all because you weren't even existing.
I wasn't even a sperm.
No, not even a twinkle in your dad's ball sack.
Nope.
But yeah, so like I said, there's not really a lot we can do to lead up to this because it's just our top 10 favorite albums of 1985. I will go ahead and say that my absolute number one favorite thing to happen in 1985 was that my wife was born.
Hey.
So yes, awesome. I got a younger lady. She's 7 years younger than me, but yeah, she was born in actually this month in 1985. And so that right there makes 85 a fucking great year. But there's also a lot of great music. So I guess let's jump into it. Now, Eddie, earlier you told me that your list is in not any kind of strict order.
Kind of. Like, I would say it loosely gets more favorite-y as it goes up. But the ordering of them could change, like, from week to week. Depending what mood I'm in. I've kind of stylistically spread it out a little bit so that not one genre kind of overshadows another too much.
I'm sure we're going to have a pretty good variety here. So let's just jump right into it. Our top 10 albums of 1985. And as usual, I throw it over to Eddie fucking Sparxx for his number 10 album of 1985.
Well, my number 10 album of 1985 is Power Fucking Windows by Rush.
Hey, I'm glad Rush made your list.
Yep, yeah, recent discovery of mine since the
Mm-hmm.
Rush trilogy of episodes we did, but this is one of my favorite Rush records. Like it leans real hard into the 80s era.
Yeah.
So much like Rocky 4 levels of synth going on. Like it's plus Marathon is on this album, dude. Like what a
Great
great
song.
track that is.
Yeah.
Big Money, Mystic Rhythms, Manhattan Project, so much cool shit on here.
Mm-hmm.
And 80s Rush is one of those things that like gets unfairly shit on by people that don't like gated reverb. Like
or keyboards, I guess.
yeah. Um I mean it's just a killer album. I think is underappreciated.
Yeah, I almost feel like that's the starting of the point that a lot of people don't like what Rush did. Like even the people that like the 80s stuff, I still hear some people go, well, Grace Under Pressure is good, and then all of a sudden I didn't like what they did for a few albums. And
Mm,
I guess I get that, but I mean, go listen to the fucking episode. I like every album.
yeah.
Um cool. Hold on. I need a sip of coffee real quick.
Sip of coffee. Need a sip of water.
Um So, for the benefit of the people who are watching this on YouTube, I apologize, podcast listeners, but I brought my records for all of my 10 albums.
Hey,
Just for
nice.
just so if you're listening to this as a podcast and I wonder what Steven looks like holding up records. Well, that's mostly what I do on this channel anyway. Um, but head over and watch the video. But just know that I am holding up a record. If there's any question about that. My number 10. So the lower part of this is where things like kept switching around and some things would go into the top 10 and then they would get pushed out of the top 10 and then the order kept changing. And then I finally settled on this order. Not completely happy with it, but it is what it is. My number 10 is Done with Mirrors from
Cool.
Aerosmith. Which I think that it's so weird because I'm seeing this the right way around in my viewer, but you're seeing it backwards, right?
I'm seeing it mirrored.
Oh, you are?
I'm yeah, no,
Oh,
yeah, it's just struck me as funny that mirror and it looks weird wrong way around from
yeah.
this.
So the actual album cover is to the people out there watching YouTube, they'll probably see this as backwards because that was the that was their
Yeah.
cute thing with this album. Like, oh, get it done with mirrors, and you have to hold it up to the mirror to see it the right way around. So Done with Mirrors was supposed to be the big Aerosmith comeback album because Brad and Joe left the band, and then they did one album with well, I think they did one album with a different guitar player, and then they eventually all came back together, and they were like, you know what, we're going to keep this Aerosmith thing going with the original lineup, and they were like, all right, here we go, Done with Mirrors. And I think the majority of people, when the album came out, went, oh, all right, because overall, when it comes to Aerosmith, whenever we get to the Aerosmith ranking, this one will probably be lower down the list just because it's has the least like sort of character that makes it stand out and
Right.
doesn't have a lot of big tracks. It's kind of just like a vibe. If you like the Aerosmith vibe, if you're like, hey, Aerosmith, I came here to hear you do some Aerosmithy type stuff. And they said, okay. And then this is the album. It's very it's a fun album if you're into the Aerosmith sound, but there's literally no like I think the only single that was released from this album, if I remember right, was Let the Music Do the Talking, which was actually a song from Joe Perry's solo album. It wasn't even an original Aerosmith. They just re-recorded a Joe Perry project song. So
Yeah.
but it's still but it's like you said about Power Windows, it's one that I don't think gets enough attention. The difference is Power Windows is a fantastic album. This one is just a really good album, and it makes it in my top 10 just because Aerosmith could just put out something that sounds like basic Aerosmith, and I would still love it because I love their sound. So that ends up being my number 10, Done with Mirrors.
Cool. So, my number 9, I'm gonna take it to a little live album.
All right. I think I know. I think I know what this is going to be. I think I know.
I'm gonna let you guess what it is.
Is it Iron Maiden Live After Death?
It is Live After Death.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's killer. Like it's one of, if not the most iconic live album in metal. Like
Amazing album cover too.
yeah, oh, it's so cool. Did we include that in our like top fives
I'm pretty sure I
of
did.
our yeah, because it's so cool.
Yeah.
And I love how it like folds out to like a whole scene.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Great performances, sounds great, and it's like an absolute greatest hits as of the Power Slave era set list. It's just like you say, just banger after banger, and it like when a song finishes and another one starts, you're like as excited as when the album started, and it's like, oh no, it's time for this one. Yeah, it's just how to do a live album if you're a metal band.
Yeah, no, it's fucking great. I honestly, like, I don't know if they ever put one out. I really would like there to be a really well produced live album from the Seventh Son tour.
Ooh,
because to me, that's where, as much as I do enjoy No Prayer for the Dying and Fear of the Dark, I mean, and all their stuff really in certain ways, but those two albums, but everything prior to that, I just feel like that is like the ultimate classic Maiden. And so them touring on that album, and they're playing stuff, you know, literally from the beginning all the way through Seventh Son. I'm like, well, that's literally just having a pool of 100 great fucking songs to choose from. But I mean, Live After Death is a fucking classic. Maybe there was one from the Seventh Son tour. I have no idea. That shows how big of an Iron Maiden fan I am. I'm like, I know they have a lot of live albums, but I feel like a lot of them came out later, you know, after Live After Death. But that's a great one. I didn't choose any live albums just because that's that weird thing in my head. It's like, I don't know if it's OCD or what it is. I'm like, it's not an actual studio album. I can't include it. So, so when it comes to something like that, I'm glad that you bring it up, because it's definitely something worth talking about from 1985.
Yeah, a live album for me has to be really, really good for me to like give it the praise I would of a studio album. But
yeah,
Live After Death's hard to argue, man.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well then let's move on to my number 9. Gonna probably the glammiest thing that's in my 1985 list.
Okay,
Asylum from
Kiss. Great fucking album.
Once again, this is also an album that I feel a lot of people don't like. But then again, 80s Kiss is like 80s Rush. People are just like, fuck that. But I've learned over the years that as much as I love all Kiss, but 80s Kiss for some reason is that thing that always is going to put me in a good mood no matter what.
I'm with you.
If I have a shit day, and you put All Night on, I'm just like, hell yeah. And so, and Asylum has, you know, has Who Wants to Be Lonely, Tears Are Falling, and All Night. Like, those were the big songs from this. But there's also a few like kind of fast songs on it. When you compare it to what they were doing for in the 80s. We did a 3-part Kiss. I keep saying Rush Kiss ranking way back in the day. Also, before we were even doing video versions. Well, you know, you can listen to it on YouTube, but you don't get to see our faces. Although I think I did these little short videos of the funny parts, because that was a fun one where we sang a lot of songs and we goofed around. We made fun of Gene Simmons quite a bit.
I know you write me sexy letters.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all. But yeah, Asylum by Kiss is a very fun album, smack dab in the middle of the 80s. Not their most 80s sounding album, that would come after Asylum. But I don't know, that it's just one of those things that you could make arguments for it not being a very good album, and I'd probably go, yeah, valid points. But personally speaking, you put Asylum on and I'm just like, yeah, it's good time vibes. and I love it. So that's my number 9.
And it ain't gonna be anything else. Nothing but a good time. That
Oh,
is
that's
that
that comes later. I think 86. When was Open
88,
Up
I
and
think
Say
that
Off?
was.
88. Yeah, 86
Yeah.
would have been
But it
Look
was
What the
always
Cat
the
Dragged In.
philosophy of
Yeah,
the 80s metal stuff.
that's true, man. It should be the philosophy of all times.
Yeah.
Don't need nothing but a good time, you know?
What's is it from Spinal Tap where it's like have a good time all the time?
Have a good time all the time. That's my philosophy, Marty. Speaking of, did you just see they announced they're doing a Spinal Tap sequel?
Yeah. 40
with
years later.
all. So here's the thing. That's the thing that's happened over the years is that if when somebody comes and says, oh, they're going to do like a reboot of something, I go, get the fuck out of here. But if they go, they're going to sequelize something like 30 to 40 years later, I'll be like, yes. Because especially in the realm of Spinal Tap and that kind of movie, there's so much they could do with that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, and those guys are also alive, still funny, still kicking. And that for some reason, like that announcement, there was no pause in me going, oh, fuck, yes. Just, Spinal Tap, one of the best movies ever made. And I really think that they can put something out that will be, probably not as good. I mean, how the fuck do you compete with that? But, stands up and supports, the original movie. So I'm really looking forward to that. And Rob Reiner's directing it, original director. And so, I mean, it's literally the whole original crew. Unfortunately, that was the one. Well, I guess that guy died in the movie anyway, but I think recently one of the drummers died. The actor that played one of the drummers
Did he
died
explode?
No, unfortunately, that would have been appropriate if he had exploded. Sorry if his family is watching. That was probably too soon. I don't even know his name. Drummer dude from Spinal Tap. Yeah, looking forward to that. I don't know how we got on Spinal Tap. That also is not 1985. I think that's 1983. Yeah, what happened? Oh, it's your turn for number. I got lost for a second. You're number 8.
Cool. So my number 8 is The Last Command by Wasp.
Oh, I should have known there'd be Wasp in here.
Yeah. It's their sophomore release. They're doubling down on being the heaviest band you could possibly argue to be glam metal, because they weren't like pretty boy glam. They were like eating bits of raw meat on stage, shock rock, Alice Cooper up to 12, like nutty ass stage shows, killer live act. But it's just ass kicking metal, dude. Especially songs like Wild Child, Jack Action, Blind in Texas, Sex Drive. They're all just like wild, crazy rockers, and it just has this like aura around it of I'm gonna kick your ass, steal your fucking girlfriend, and ride off into the sunset in a Trans Am. That is like that is like the whole vibe of this album, and I love it.
Awesome.
And Blackie Lawless has one of the coolest voices of all time, straight up.
That's a band we'll eventually get to, and will be another one of those that I don't really know a lot of their stuff. I know a handful of tracks. Nothing's ever really pulled me in and said, "Hey, you need to be a Wasp fan." Although who doesn't like Fuck Like a Beast? It's a
Fuck Like a Beast.
Yeah. That song sounds very creepy. It's always sounded very creepy. Very creepy.
Pictures of naked ladies.
So much of that music in this day and age has not aged well for a lot of people. So,
it's one of those things where it's if you analyze it through a modern lens, you'll be arrested.
yeah. That's going to have to be something that becomes commonplace, where if you're judging something, you have to judge it from the time period that it came out. Not everything. There are some things that are still cringeworthy, and they were cringeworthy back then also. But but things like Wasp and the band I'm about to get to, with their debauchery and whatnot, you just give them a pass because they're older and wiser now. But is this number 8? My number 8. Invasion of Your Privacy
Nice.
by Rat, which is the second Rat album, and a great one. A lot of great songs on this one. I think this was lower in my list in our Rat ranking just because I appreciate some of their other albums more, but this one, taken on its own merit, is fucking great. Plus, it's got Lay It Down on it, which is like that's still a riff that every time I hear it, I go, oh, I want to go learn how to play that. And then I go, nope, I don't, because it's going to ruin it for me. Because I know it's not an easy riff, but I don't want to be able to play it. I want to hear it every time and go, oh fuck, because it sounds so. I don't know what about that riff is so pleasing to me. The way that it's picked, the way that the chords go, everything about it is just perfect.
It's just kind of sexually imposing, isn't it? It's just like, again, it's that whole thing of, I'm real promiscuous. Yeah. You don't know if I'm a dangerous guy. Oh, by the way, I busted my hand before this episode, so that's why I've got this.
He's not just balancing something. The podcast listeners can't see that, but he's got I don't know, is it a bag of peas or what is it?
It's just this like bag of gel that I stick in the fridge.
Oh, yeah. He had a battle with a doorway earlier.
Yeah. Worked all day at a fucking produce aisle, and it didn't scat anything over, knock anything over. I haven't had a clumsy day at all. And then I come home to my own house that I know like the back of my hand, and I break the back of my hand.
Well, you're going to get to know the back of your hand a little bit more because it's going to be throbbing and you're going to be checking it and looking at it. I know how that works.
It really sucks.
I mean, I run into shit all the time, and like, but also like, I don't know if you've reached that age yet, but I've for years had that thing where I'll just wake up and I just have a bruise, and I don't know where the bruise came from. Because I don't play sports. I'm not rough with anything, but somehow like I just knock into a corner or something, but don't even remember it.
I am like the polar opposite. I don't bruise for shit. Like I could have like someone literally smash a like lead pipe into my leg, and it would look bent out of shape, but it wouldn't bruise. It's fucking weird. I don't know what's wrong with my skin.
I think maybe you're part cyborg. Could be. What are we? Oh, so yeah. So now you're number 7 from 1985.
7. Cool. So my number 7 from 85 is "Killing Is My Business," and business is good. Yeah. Hell yeah. It's the rawest and angriest Megadeth album ever made.
Yeah.
Coming pretty much straight after his firing from Metallica. You can just hear the venom sizzling in his veins. It is just absolute unrelenting fury from start to finish. And from the moment that piano intro finishes right up to the end of These Boots, like, holy shit, man. This album is just the absolute definition of pissed off. This is like a cornered snake that's like reeling back, and it's gonna strike you at any moment.
It's interesting because it's like the album has always made me feel like, because like, you know, Kill 'Em All is an absolute masterpiece of early 80s thrash to me, and you know, set the stage for so much stuff. So it's a very important album, but I almost feel like, you know, Kill 'Em All is like this beautiful muscle car. It looks amazing, and it's fast as fuck. And then all of a sudden, here comes Megadeth, who's in a really shitty car, but it's way faster than the Metallica car. Yeah. They just fucking lap them. And that is, you know, so it's like, because I out of the two, I would say that Kill 'Em All is the better album, but there's an energy, there's a something to prove energy to Killing Is My Business that I totally love, and it just it never gets old to me.
It's one of those things as well where it's like you said, it may not be as, you know, thought out and composed as Kill 'Em All, but like you say, there was a real effort to prove something, and they proved it. Like,
yeah.
Here's the Four Horsemen with 2 minutes shaved off based on sheer tempo alone. Like,
Yeah. I mean, but if you're bringing that song up, then all of a sudden it's like, here's the Four Horsemen with really shitty lyrics.
yeah. But yeah, it's a killer album, and I
Yeah.
know I only had it like midway up in my Megadeth ranking, but that's because I'm I'm a I'm a 90s Megadeth guy.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's ranking Megadeth was also very hard just because
Hmm.
there's so much good shit. Um, yeah. You done with that one with your number 7?
I am done with that one.
Cool. Mine is another debut album from 1985. That's also the rawest album that this band ever did, but I absolutely love it. We Care a Lot from Faith No More,
Yes.
and this album is just so fucking good. First album, obviously Chuck Mosley on vocals, and the original version of We Care a Lot. But well, we also did a Faith No More ranking. Fucking 2 years ago. It's been a while.
That was an early one.
And I talked a lot about, like, the thing that I love about We Care a Lot is that it's almost like a bizarre new wave album,
Yeah.
or new wave post-punk. Like, there's no, like, there's like the little sort of metal elements that would sneak in a little bit with Introduce Yourself, but definitely with The Real Thing, Angel Dust, and stuff like that. But in this case, there's not really any of that there. This is like,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that it's just this weird album that I'm pretty sure at the time, like, nobody was doing anything
Hmm.
exactly like they were doing it. And I know there's a beauty to the how odd and rough around the edges it is, and it goes perfectly with Chuck's vocals and his lyrics, because everything is just so, like, all parts that shouldn't necessarily be working together, but they absolutely work together.
Yeah.
And so I love We Care a Lot. I mean, that's another thing when people sort of write off pre Mike Patton Faith No More, and I'm like, oh no, you can't fucking do that. That's like that
Yeah.
shit's really good. Yeah. But I guess to each their own, but I think We Care a Lot is a fantastic album. So it ends up at number, was that seven? Number 7.
Yeah. Also, I don't know what it is. I'm just going to chime in here. I was listening to, granted, I was listening to Introduce Yourself rather than
Mhm.
We Care a Lot.
Yeah.
But I was in the car the other day just yelling along to Chuck Mosley, and there's just something primal and satisfying about his vocal delivery.
Yeah.
He's not a trained singer by any stretch of the imagination, but for him to just get up and be himself, like, and do it with such conviction, and he was actually quite insecure behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Um, but by the way, rest in peace, Chuck Mosley.
Yeah.
But he was just such a unique animal, you know.
Mhm.
On you know, and Mike Patton is Mike Patton,
Sure.
but Chuck had a vibe all his own, and
Yeah.
it's almost like listening to two different bands because the aesthetic kind of shifted around The Real Thing.
Yeah. And we talked about it too, that I feel like the band was going to progress, and I
Hmm.
feel like they were it was inevitable that they were going to progress beyond Chuck's capabilities. They needed a
Yeah,
more dynamic vocalist. So that's why I don't ever say, "Oh, I wish they had done more with Chuck," as much as I love it, because I feel like if the stuff on The Real Thing is where they were moving musically, they needed somebody that could
yeah.
support that or be supported by that, and that was obviously Mike Patton. But yeah, We Care a Lot's fucking killer. If you haven't listened to it, I don't expect it to sound like the Faith No More that you hear a lot, because it doesn't sound like that. But it's great. So moving on to number 6.
Cool. My number 6 is the self-titled album from Heart.
Oh, okay. So this is the first big 80s one for them, right?
Yeah, it's the one where they really shifted to like a big stadium rock kind of thing. They'd kind
Yeah.
of they'd flirted with 80s sort of stuff on the previous album with like kind of new wavy synths and very 80s drum sounds.
Yeah.
But we're talking more like pop 80s rather than arena rock 80s. And
Yeah.
this is where they really went in on that. And they went full hairband mode on this album. And, you know, the songs If Looks Could Kill and Shell Shock are basically 80s metal songs that bookend the album. The Wolf is really cool as well. But
What was the big hit off of that one?
Here's the big hits. What About Love? Never. And These Dreams. Like, holy shit.
Wow. Yeah.
That is a big album. And the Wilson sisters are kind of crushes of mine.
They fucking rule, man.
Yeah.
That's one we'll eventually get to doing the Heart discography, because that's another group that I like. Everything I've heard from Heart, even the 80s stuff that some people would call cheesy, but I don't think I've heard a full album all the way through. So that's one that will definitely be interesting.
I think that one to you will be much more musically satisfying than the Twisted Sister episode we did, where you hadn't listened to a full album before.
Yeah, no, I'll like it just because Ann Wilson's voice is one of my favorite voices in rock music, just because she just sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else to add on that one? The self-titled Heart album?
It's just so fucking good, and it's not all rock, and it's not all pop. It like hits this perfect middle ground where they can do a hard rock song like Shell Shock, and they can do a full on like pop song like Never, and it's just so good, and it has that perfect 80s vibe that really sends you back there.
Yeah.
And you know, I wasn't there in the 80s to say firsthand, but this is one of those albums that really makes me feel like I'm playing Vice City as a kid and discovering all this 80s stuff.
Yeah.
So
plus that album, from being there at the time and being young, These Dreams was a song that crossed over. It was on pop radio as well as rock radio. Well, I guess rock radio wasn't as big of a thing as it became, but you would, you know, because when I was a kid in the, you know, around the mid 80s, you would listen to the top 40 station, and the top 40 station would have like all the biggest hits, no matter what the genre was. And so you would hear, you know, Hall & Oates, followed by Kenny Rogers, followed by The Police. Like you would just hear these things that were these massive hits, and These Dreams was a song that you heard a lot. It was fucking huge for them.
It's one of those you still hear on the radio now. It's just such a classic.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm wrapped up here. I'm gonna pass it over to you. It's
cool.
Time for your number 6.
My number 6, you already talked about it. Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good from Megadeth. And for those of you who are listening in the podcast world, I'm holding up the OG version of the album because the cover is better and the sound is better. Don't give me that Final Kill shit, okay? It's fine if you want your shit unnecessarily fixed in a way that it doesn't need to be. This album is perfect.
Your turds unnecessarily polished.
No, because this is not a turd.
I know.
This album is perfect how it is. I love the album cover. I love the weird Megadeth logo, whatever the fuck that is. I love the way the songs are produced. I love this version of it that's got these boots on it. We'd already talked about it. It is just an exhilarating album from like a band that's just like, fuck all of you. And it's great. And that's like a big reason, because when we did our Megadeth ranking, you get to a certain point in their discography, basically about, I don't know, probably post Risk, because I like Risk, which is there are some albums I noticed like really trigger people. When you say you like it, they're like, "What's your problem?" And I'm like, "Well, can I just like something?" Risk is good, but after that, my relationship with Megadeth is so rocky where I go, oh, this album's good. This album's this album's good. This album's But
It's funny you should say that because I had that exact conversation with my friend yesterday. I was talking to Dan, and he said, ever since the millennium, Megadeth is kind of a cock tease band where they'll give you a killer, and then they'll give you something where it's like, some good tracks. Then they'll put out another killer, and it's like,
yeah.
Can we find some momentum here?
Yeah. But my point being is that even with that rocky relationship I've had with them for 20 years or whatever, because of the strength of everything they did, prior to that, including this first album, they're always going to be listed among like my favorite bands because I'm just like, that shit is so good. Yeah. Like it's just great. And yeah, Killing Is My Business is just probably one of the best thrash debut albums, up there with Kill 'Em All. And there's, speaking of that, there's another debut thrash album that is not on my list that eventually somebody's going to comment and be like, oh, how could you not put that on the list? I specifically put on my battle vest and bullet belt for this episode. Well, you look adorable. So anyway, because really we like the way I was telling, I may have said it on the episode. I don't remember if it was prior to the episode. I said there's so much of my list, especially moving forward a little bit, that is so not heavy music. That it's another one of those reasons why when somebody uses the word metalhead addressed at me, I go, nah. I mean, it's some days, yeah, I guess. Yeah. So that we're now in our top five of 1985, which is the year that Marty McFly has to get back to when he goes to 1955. And then he gets back to 1985, and then he has to go back to 1955 to get the goddamn sports book from Biff, and that goes on for way too goddamn long in that movie. I'm just like, get the goddamn book, just shoot him in the head and get the book. Oh wait, that would probably fuck up the space-time continuum. And then they're all like, we got to go back to Old West. Well, they don't have to go back there; it's an accident. But anyway, whatever. The Back to the Future movies are fantastic. That is one that like they need to leave that alone. Leave Back to the Future alone. Don't reboot it. Don't do any sequels. Clearly, because Michael J. Fox he's doing fine, but he's not going to be able to do the acting that he used to be able to do. So please leave those alone because that's a great trilogy right there, don't you think?
Yeah. Do you want to know the thing that always fucks me up though? Ever since I was about 16. The future in Back to the Future 2 is 7 years ago at this stage.
Yeah.
And it's like, where the fuck is my hoverboard? Like
but to be completely honest, if the most interesting thing is that there are things that we have that are way beyond the technology that they had in the movie. Yeah. So I'm like, so sure, we didn't get hoverboards or self-lacing shoes, although I think they do have things kind of like that where the shoes automatically tighten or some shit like that.
Did they? Is it Nike or Reebok that has those in the movie? I can't remember. It's
probably Nike. I don't know. That seems I think
it was Nike high tops, wasn't it? And I just remember, I'm sure I saw somewhere someone had made some. It might have been a Ranger. I don't know. It might have just been like replica ones from the movie. I don't know.
But if you think about, sometimes I start to like forget how much cool shit we have because nobody in Back to the Future 2 had a fucking handheld phone that they could talk to people on and listen to music on. Like that was not in Back to the Future 2. That alone is, I'm just like, fuck, man, we did, I'm okay without a hoverboard or flying cars. That's fine.
But I still have yet to be eaten by a big ass hologram shark.
That's true. I have a feeling that something like that exists somewhere though. Maybe in like the virtual reality headsets, you could be eaten by a shark.
In Japan somewhere. It's got to be in Japan. Japan are miles ahead tech wise. Like,
that's true.
If a country in the world has that, it's those guys.
Yeah. Hello to all our fans in Japan, which I don't think anybody in Japan.
Konnichiwa.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I would love it if people in Japan listen to us, but I don't. I don't think we've made it there yet. We've made it to other great places like Australia and Brazil. I don't know.
Who knows?
Puerto Rico, oh! I don't know. I was just like doing that shout outs like people do from the stage. Yeah. Who's from West Side? And
I still love that David Guetta shout out to his family. that fucking. If you guys haven't seen it, go, after the show, like, you know what? Do it now and then come back. Right? Go on YouTube and type in David Guetta ends racism, and it is the video of the year.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but back to 1985, which we were in with Back to the Future. Did you so like I got to see Back to the Future in the theater, and it's really a memorable experience for me because in Austin, Texas, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first movie in Austin shown with THX sound. And so do you know what that is? Is that a thing that like yeah. So imagine like for the very first time, I'm a fucking 7-year-old kid sitting there with my family and that happens. I'm like, oh fuck. We just leave the movie now.
You're like that dude in the Maxell cassette advert that's being thrown back by his stereo.
I had that poster on my wall when I was a kid. The Maxell guy. Yeah. Nice. It was awesome. I loved that. That image was fucking great. Anyway, so that was a Back to the Future tangent, but and other tangents. But now
we're very 80s tangent.
That's okay. We're literally smack dab in the middle of the 80s for this episode. So we'll now we're in our top 5. So let's do it.
So this is probably the most 80s album on this list. Under Lock and Key by Dokken.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is an excellent across-the-board glam metal album. It's got its mid-pace tracks, ballads, even some speed metal in there for good measure, and it's got a little something for everyone in a perfect poodle perm package. Let's have a look at that old track listing, shall we?
That's another band that I haven't heard full albums from, and I think it's because I hear songs and I like all of the music, but I don't really like Don Dokken's vocals. I'm not sure what it is.
I found that when I first heard Dokken, I thought his voice was a little too soft. And then I started, hearing how, hair metal sounded, and then it just became another part of it. But, I mean, Unchain the Night, The Hunter, In My Dreams, Lightning Strikes Again, Don't Lie to Me.
Oh, In My Dreams is a really good song.
Yeah.
I like that one.
That one's on there. And that, in my opinion, that is a great song, but it's not the best song on the album.
No.
I think Lightning Strikes Again is the best.
It was shouted to George Lynch on guitar there, too.
Yeah. Shout out to George Lynch.
Great guitar player.
Absolute fucking killer guitar player. It's just a great album, and I love the fact that they're stood in this like fiery fog at their feet in those like crazy colorful designer suits.
That honestly is one of those albums, when we did the last episode and I was talking about like if you're into 80s stuff, you own Stay Hungry and Metal Health. I feel like that's another one that I probably should lose some points for not owning it on vinyl, because it seems like it's one of the ones that should be in the collection.
It's a must-have. It is an essential hair metal album or glam metal album. I'm trying to move away from saying hair metal because it's like it was a secondary derogatory term.
I think before the term hair metal had really come around, even post 1980s, I think we always referred to it as cock rock.
Cock rock, yeah, true.
and then that went away when people started saying hair metal. But I just remember that was how we always referred to it. It was cock rock, and that seems more appropriate because it is rock driven by cocks specifically. So
think with your dick music. That's what it is.
Yep.
And it's great, shreddy. it's kind of like rap, but with like softer vocals, I guess. And with that, over to you
All
with the
right,
weather.
I'm. This is not going to be any. Get ready for a few albums of no heaviness. They're not heavy,
Ah,
not heavy. But oh, I love I love this album, and I love the album cover. Freaky
ah,
Styley by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The,
American Ghost Dance. Yeah,
this is such a good album, and we did a Red Hot Chili Peppers ranking.
we did.
And I complained so much about how, starting with Californication, they've just been a band that I give no fucks for at all. But I still like them as people. Like, I still, every time they put out an album, I go, I love you guys. I really want to be on board with this. And then I hear it and I go, I can't. But I still support them. I'm all about, you know what? Their album sells really well. They play sold out concerts. They have millions of fans. People love them. I'm like, great. Because they put out shit like Freaky Styley. And I'm just like, then I think in the episode we did, or the 2 episodes we did, when I talked about Freaky Styley, I talked about how it's a fucking vibe. It's an album that just, it feels like the ultimate like Chili Peppers party album, where it was literally just intended like, hey, you got some friends over and you're smoking some doobs and drinking some brews. Like, this is the album to throw on, because it's just a fucking enjoyable vibe all the way through. And I like the fact that some of the album, because they're known for being funky, but I think people expect Chili Peppers to be like that sort of fast funky, but there's so much kind of, I'm really high, man, kind of funky on Freaky
Look
Styley.
at that turtle go, bro.
Yeah, exactly. That sums it up. And yeah, I'm you go listen to the Chili Peppers episodes and you'll hear me talk at length about Freaky Styley, but it's just, personally speaking, it's one of my favorite Chili Peppers albums. And it's an album that, like, just like with 80s Kiss, I'm just like, if I want to be put into a good mood immediately, then Freaky Styley is where I would go. So that's my number 5 album from 1985.
Nice. So my number 4 is Spreading the Disease by Anthrax.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I love this album because it has a lot of across the board 80s metal elements while still being thrash as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
it's got thrash on it, but it has a little bit of everything, and like it heavy as fuck riffs, killer drumming, and the first appearance of Joey Belladonna. This is where like the Anthrax iconic sound will begin to
Yeah.
form. Let's have a look at the track listing here, because
I feel like this album has much more in common with what they do now than any other album, because it does have thrash elements, but it has full on just basic metal kind of songs on it.
Yeah,
which is, I think, that's where they are now. I mean, there'll be a little thrash, but they're kind of in the middle of things with metal.
for sure. I mean, like AIR, Lone Justice, Madhouse.
Yep.
Madhouse, dude. I remember the first time I heard Madhouse on the GTA Vice City radio stations in the game, and I was just addicted to that song. In actual fact, this is how much I loved it. Every time, if I was on a mission and I got into a car and I was told to drive somewhere, I would purposefully drive the longest possible route around the game's map to listen to the whole song by the time I got there.
Nice.
And if I had like a little bit of time left on the song, I would just park. It was just such a awakening for me, and like every single riff in that song is amazing.
Yeah.
The Enemy, that's the one with like all the crazy, like almost Def Leppardy drum sounds on it, isn't it? I think that's the one.
Yeah.
Medusa, cheesy 80s metal, love it.
Yeah.
And Gung Ho.
Armed and Dangerous. You missed Armed and Dangerous. That
Armed
song
and
is
Dangerous. Yeah. The whole thing is just like an absolute how to do 80s thrash metal 101 with like other 80s metal standards thrown in there.
Yeah.
But like, my God, dude, whenever I listen to this album, I'm just reminded of like, holy shit, yeah, this is why they're in the big four.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, I'm gonna wrap that up. Over to you for your number four.
My number four, continuing my not heaviness.
Yeah.
This is not probably the poppiest album on my list, but it is a goddamn masterpiece of 80s pop. Play Deep by The Outfield.
Josie's on a vacation far away. Love it.
One of the best songs ever written right there.
Mm-hmm.
And like this album is it's the debut album from The Outfield. But every single song is catchy as fuck. Every song could have been a single, and 4 of them were, I think. They had 4 singles, I think, off this album. Say It Isn't So, Your Love, All the Love. They're all love, you know. Maybe it was just those 3. But it's so well written, well crafted pop songs. And I love the John Sparxx, the vocalist. I love his voice, and everything about this album is so great. And I even remember, like, I have a memory of this album too. My oldest brother and I have 2 older brothers. My oldest one is like, 18 years older than me, so he's old man right now. But I remember we went on like some road trip somewhere, and I rode with my oldest brother, and he had the cassette of Play Deep by The Outfield. And I remember as a little kid, as a 7-year-old kid, turning to my brother and being like, this is the first album I've ever heard where there's no bad song on it. Every song is really good. And, later I'd find other albums that was the same thing. But I still feel the same way. Play Deep has no bad song. It is just one of the best albums of the 80s. But it's only number 4 on my list. But I don't know how to sell it to people that come here and they're metalheads, because I'm like, it's got guitar in it. They're a band, drums, guitar, vocals, but it's very it's light, but if you like really great catchy songwriting, you can't do a lot better in 85 than The Outfield. So it's my number 4.
Cool. So my number 3 is Invasion of Your Privacy by Rat.
Nice. I had a feeling this would be somewhere on your list. So awesome.
I'm glad it appeared on both our lists too, because like we had kind of differing opinions on like the strength of the material compared to other Rat albums.
Yeah.
And if you want to listen to the full ranking, go check out our Rat episode. But this is unashamedly my favorite Rat album.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's just so much great sing-along material on this one. It's not hard to remember at all. A lot of it is like the choruses are crazy hooky and easy to remember, like to the nth degree. But it's just one of those albums where like it starts off with You're in Love, then Never Use Love.
There it is again. There it is again. It sounds like you're in love. Like I love urine.
Piss time. You're in Love, never use love, Lay It Down, Give It All. Like those 4 tracks alone, damn, dude. And then you get like, to me, it's a little bit of a mid-album dip with Closer to My Heart and Between the Eyes.
That's a great, but Closer to My Heart is like a sexy ass song to me.
It is, but like there's just a certain like fuck yeah like mode with the first 4 tracks, and then it gets kind of sultry with the midsection, and I'm like, unless I'm getting it on, I'm a skip right over to What You Give's What You Get. I mean, that's another one. Like, it's so easy to forget. Like, it's a real menacing riff in there.
Yeah.
And it got me on the line. You should know by now. You should know by now.
Lazy ass lyric writing right there.
Yeah.
Just repeat the same line again, because we're in a hurry, Stephen. Okay. I'm referring to Stephen Piercy, not me.
That got kind of meta there for a second.
Yeah. Only he's
yeah.
Stephen. He's Stephen. He spells his name the wrong way, doesn't he? Isn't he a Stephen with a PH?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not one of you guys. He's not one of the elites.
Nope.
But then you get Dangerous but Worth the Risk. Great.
It's a great song.
Great album, dude.
Yeah, agreed.
I love it. And that's why it's my number 3 of the whole last year. So
your list is remarkably way more rockin' than mine. So now here is the most 80s album on my list. Once again, it's got guitar solos on it, but it is the
Miami Vice soundtrack.
Oh, that's fucking good, man. Was that 85 also?
I think it started 84, but into 85 was when it reached mass popularity.
That soundtrack was a fucking big deal when it came out because it's you had that,
and
then you had "You Belong to the City" and songs like that, and Smuggler's Blues is on there. It is just packed full of cool songs. Anyway, it's not the Miami Vice soundtrack. I'm going to go on record and say this is probably, when it comes to mainstream music, this is one of the greatest albums of the 1980s. Songs from the Big Chair by Tears for Fears. It is, I love Tears for Fears. They just put out an album this year that's really good, stands up with their old shit. But Songs from the Big Chair, it's one of those albums where it simultaneously is the album with the big hits and one of the most perfect albums that they ever made, because it's got Shout, it's got Everybody Wants to Rule the World, it's got Head Over Heels, all that shit's on there. But every other song is great too. And they are, if you go and listen especially to this album, they were beyond what other 80s groups were doing, because their songwriting, they weren't just writing pop songs. There's a I don't know, a meticulously crafted aspect to this album, the way that it plays out and the different types of songs. And I can't think of another 80s album that's like that, where it's got your full on, this is an iconic 80s pop song, but then it takes you other places where you go, man, I was not expecting this at all. And it's just an absolute masterpiece to me. And it's been one of my favorites since 1985. It's one of the albums. A lot of these albums I heard a little bit later on, but I had Songs from the Big Chair on cassette tape, played the fuck out of it, and it has remained one of my favorite albums ever since. And it's fucking fantastic. I don't know what else to say about it. It's fucking Tears for Fears. Like I said, not rock, but there are some really good guitar solos on it. There's a couple songs where I hear the solo and I go, "Ooh, that's pretty fucking tasty." But it's a pop album overall. So anyway, that's my number 3.
That's the thing about 80s music as well. You could always count on 80s songs to have a kick-ass either lead guitar solo or a saxophone solo.
That's what I was gonna say. If there's not there's both on this album. There's guitar solos and saxophone solos. That isn't I'm sure we already said this before, but the sax solo has to come back in music. I don't know how, but just throw it in there. Throw a sax solo in your songs, and you're gonna gain at least a point from me. Even if your song's shit, I'm gonna be like, but it had a saxophone solo.
Yep. That's an automatic extra star on the review.
Yeah.
Even if it's the worst song you ever heard, you still get 2 stars by default.
It's just something about when you hear the saxophone come in, and it just, I don't know what it does to me, where I just go, oh, there it is, folks.
It's just one of those that taps into, ooh, that sounds good.
It's if you thought this song was sexy, now it's going to lay you down by the fire now with this fucking solo.
It's the electric guitar of the horn section. What can I say?
That is true. It is. Is there a well-known saxophone player that like everybody knows. You say somebody's name and they go saxophone player. Like, can you think of one?
Kenny G.
Kenny G doesn't play the saxophone though. He
Oh no, I'm
plays
done. But is it? Oh yeah, it's like a clarinet kind of thing, isn't it?
something. He's not saxophone though. Like I can't think of if somebody's listening to this or watching on YouTube, put in the comments like if there's a well-known, and I say well-known, like basic ass people that don't listen to a lot of music know this person. But I can't think of one. But which is weird because like you're right. It is the electric guitar of brass instruments, but you know people that play all sorts of other stuff and not saxophone. Okay, well,
let's change that. Glam metal band that only has shredding on a sax.
Oh, that would be sweet. Yeah,
that'd be amazing. But on the polar opposite end of the metal spectrum, let's take it on over to some thrash territory.
Hey,
my number 2 is Hell Awaits by Slayer.
Nice.
To this day, this album has an aura about it that still scares me a little bit. Like, it's the only Slayer album that I put on and I feel unsettled. Like the rest of them, I'm like, that sounds heavy. That sounds evil. That sounds really cool. Whenever I put on Hell Awaits, not even Show No Mercy has this effect on me. Hell Awaits exclusively, I put it on and I feel legitimately scared. Like
you think it's the opening of the album that does it for you?
That starts things off, but like down to the
back.
Boom. Oh, like it's just so menacing. There's only 7 songs on it, but the songs are really long in terms of Slayer songs. Like most of them are like 7 minutes ish. But the way this album is composed, it just has this scary horror vibe to it. And it's even down to the fact that the album cover itself, there's something about when an album cover is done and it's kind of shitty looking, but it's scary shitty looking.
Yeah.
Like, because the Hell Awaits, like, not even the Slayer logo is like as symmetrical as it would be on like all the other releases.
Yeah.
There's just something like rough and terrifying about that. It looks like the drawings of someone who's gone insane and seen hell itself, you know? And all the effects on in Tom Araya's voice that makes him sound like a demon throughout the whole thing. There's just something about what they tapped into on this album that makes me think, fuck, holy shit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't pick a fight with these guys. I mean, the title track, At Dawn They Sleep, Necrophiliac, Hardening of the Arteries. I also love that this album ends how it begins. It comes full circle. Like, it opens with the and it goes out like that. And it's a really clever move.
Yeah.
But Hell Awaits by Slayer is, in my opinion, the most underrated Slayer album as well.
You're probably not wrong. I love that album, but it did not make it into my top 10.
Fair.
But literally for my next 2, you've already talked about them. I'll be quick. My number 2 is Power Windows by Rush.
Nice.
Fucking great album. All the things that Eddie said, I second those things. I don't think it wasn't as high on my list when we did our Rush ranking, but that's because all Rush albums are great, and so where do they go? I don't know.
Yeah.
But Power Windows is, on its own, just when you're not trying to compare it to other Rush albums, it's a fantastic album, and it is to me, it's like the most synth heavy of anything they did. The production would get a little even more 80s sounding with the next album, but I think when it comes to synth use, I feel like Power Windows is like the pinnacle, the peak, the top of the mountain of keyboard use. But yeah, it's just at this point, it's an absolute classic album, and it's I don't know. It is one of those things where it's I don't consider anybody a Rush fan if they don't enjoy albums like Power Windows, just because that's like a part of who the band at this point. It's just a part of who they are. It's it's just as important as 2112 for the makeup of who Rush are as a band. And I think it's a great album, so it ended up being my my number 2.
Cool. So we
Number
are at the
1.
number 1 spot, and this is an album that you have mentioned. A little
Okay.
lower down,
Okay.
I've gone for Asylum by Kiss.
Wow, number 1.
Yeah. I recall having this pretty damn high on my Kiss ranking.
Yeah.
I love all of the eras of Kiss, and this has become my favorite of their 80s albums. There is just so much tunage going on this album.
Absolutely.
King of the Mountain, Who Wants to Be Lonely. I like when I first heard Who Wants to Be Lonely, I must have listened to that fucking song about 10 times in a row because I was like, this song's so good, and I've never heard it. What the hell is wrong with me?
That video is like also I think Paul Stanley at his glammiest, because he's got the big ass flow. I don't even know what the fuck he's wearing, but it is like huge and flowy and pink or whatever. Yeah. And it is just that is I mean they were spending a lot of money on their clothes at that point, which they shouldn't have been. Come on, guys. It was a rough time for the band.
Yeah, hell, like, but we still got songs like I'm Alive, like that. That's a speed metal song. Tears Are Falling is killer. All Night, like, this is just the banger zone. And like, even on let's get this bad boy up. Asylum, Kiss, Any Way You Slice It, Trial by Fire, Love's a Deadly Weapon, Secretly Cruel, Radar for Love. They're all catchy songs too.
Yeah.
But like, my God, man, like these tracks. Whew, I wish the songs I wish I'd wrote.
Well, yeah. Once again, I think that like the problem is comparing this to older or classic Kiss. But if you go for like what they were actually trying to do, like it's great songs and very well produced, and it's perfect for the time, really.
That's the thing. I would say, like, it really is a case of once the makeup came off, they were a completely different band. They were playing completely different style of rock than what they were doing in the 70s. And yeah, that's okay for a band to do. And I like when bands do that. They don't, kowtow to their audience. Because, like, to be fair, Kiss did really well in the 80s too.
So some of it. Some of the times they did.
I mean, they did better than a lot of bands.
Oh, like, I mean, true.
Yeah. But that being said, holy shit, this is the banger zone, my guy, and it's my go-to album for 1985.
Sweet. My go-to album, my number 1 album from 1985. You already talked about it, and if everybody's got to know this is my number 1. Spreading the Disease from Anthrax. I love this album. It's fucking great. I don't even remember where that album was on our Anthrax ranking, but it's great. We've already said a lot of things about it. It was not even, it was one of the later Anthrax albums that I got into because I originally got into State of Euphoria and then Persistence of Time, and I think it was even after Attack of the Killer Bees had come out before I ever went and bought Spreading the Disease. And I just remember being blown away by Joey's high notes. Because if you listen to the later 80s albums, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do that. And literally right out of the gate in AIR, he does this fucking high ass. I was just like, holy crap, I didn't know he could do that. That's fucking sweet. Which that's it's funny how that's a thing that in certain bands I go, oh, that's awesome. But now it's become a thing in any modern band. I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. Never. Because it always just sounds really forced and out of place now. I don't know why. I just don't just leave that for the 80s, But
Unless it's something I do, because I'm really good at that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. You actually are. That's absolutely true. Yeah,
I get a free pass.
That's true. I'll let you. What's one if Eddie ever in our lifetime releases music that he's working on, you'll get to hear some of his vocal abilities. But
It's getting there.
I'm giving you a peek behind the curtain. He has a lot of songs. and a lot of them seem like they're done, like they're ready to go. But
I just can't find the sound. It's like me sat looking through fucking reverbs to put on the snare drum. It's like they come in and people ask me, "Well, have you found it yet?" I'm like, "I'm sure it's this one, but what if I release it and I find out there's a better one?"
Yeah. But I feel like everybody should start hounding Eddie to put out music. Like, just put it in the comments here. Send him an email. I don't even know his, at Eddie@email.com. That'll go straight to him.
You're totally doxing me right now.
I'm sorry about that, sir. No, I was just kidding. He doesn't make music. He does have an OnlyFans. That you can, I think it's like $50 a month though. He charges a lot, but he gives you a lot of content, you're going to see parts of Eddie that you never thought you would see.
I'm real generous with the shaft, guys.
Where spreading the disease. Yeah. That's spreading other things. This is spreading the disease. That's my number one. Anthrax is one of my favorite bands ever, and Spreading the Disease is like I said, it has a lot in common with where they are now, because it does have that variety of songs. And then once they got to Among the Living, they went more like leaned way into thrash. But
they're gonna I like it when about that OnlyFans, man. I'm gonna have to deliver otherwise.
Oh, I may or may not be lying about the OnlyFans. People are gonna be like Googling, trying to find it. They're gonna find they're gonna find somebody else whose name is Eddie Sparxx, and then that's gonna cause a lot of trouble. Only your name should be Eddie Spunks when you do that, but that was a joke for my British fans, because over here we don't refer to it as spunk. Spunk is something that you have when you're very energetic over here. Like, you've got a lot of spunk, and I always go, "Oh, all right. I guess that can make somebody energetic. I don't know."
It's good for protein.
That is absolutely true. So maybe it does. Maybe it does spunk leads to spunk in America. They're inner. I don't know. Never mind. Where? Yes, Spreading the Disease, great album. My number one of 1985, and so that was 1985, folks.
Totally.
Right in the middle of the 80s, and
slap bang in the middle.
I'll go ahead and take care of this for somebody out there. No, I did not put Bonded by Blood anywhere on my list. Wouldn't even have been an honorable mention. Do you have honorable mentions, sir, for this episode?
I do, and it is in there for me.
Well, it gets a mention. Here you go.
Yeah. Shall I run down through my honorable mentions first?
Sure. Yeah. I don't have any. I left mine to the 10 because I didn't want to deal with it, because it's a lot. There's a lot of albums in 1985.
Cool. So 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit by Bon Jovi. Underrated Bon Jovi album, in my opinion.
Oh, we should talk about Bon Jovi. Are you worried about Bon Jovi?
I'm not worried about Bon Jovi. Let's do it. No rock band is safe from Cranked and Ranked.
I'm talking about John Bon Jovi. Have you seen recent footage of John Bon Jovi singing live?
As in like the guy.
John Bon Jovi.
I heard I heard someone made a joke that he's got kind of a grandma kind of vibe going on.
No, vocally speaking, everyone keeps releasing this footage of them on their current tour. And all the songs are tuned down like 2 steps, like they're very low. But even then, it sounds like he's constantly running out of breath. And so I hear him and I go, "Oh, I wonder if something's wrong with him." And other people on the other side of the coin are being assholes. Like, why would you pay money for that? Well, I mean, they're going to see Bon Jovi, but like vocally speaking, I'm just like, oh, I hope he's. I mean, maybe he's just going through a rough patch where his voice is fucked up, and they're like, the show must go on.
Yeah.
But I hear it and it makes me uncomfortable. I just go, oh man, I would not want to be out in front of those people if that's what was happening vocally. But anyway, I didn't know if you had heard any of that. Don't look it up because you might feel sad for the guy. Let's remember. I don't even know any songs that are on 7800 or whatever it's called.
That one.
Nope, I don't know that
Hardest part is the night.
Nope.
That one? No? It's a good album. You should check it out.
I think prior to Slippery When Wet, I know Runaway, and that's it. I think that's the only song I know. That is...
There we go.
That's some keyboard awesomeness right there.
Hell yeah, it was. So yeah, Bonded by Blood by Exodus. Yeah. I did have it on here. It is a good album. Then you got, I decided to include something that would pave the way for a certain little movement that would take over the world in 1991.
Oh.
And that is Come On Down by Green River.
Okay, yeah.
Super early grunge EP, but
which Green River people from that would end up in Pearl Jam. Well, I mean, in Mother Love Bone and then Pearl Jam.
And Mudhoney as well.
Oh yeah, and Mudhoney.
So yeah, it was kind of like a stepping off point for all of these killer bands.
Yeah.
And these guys were a killer act too. Come Out and Play by Twisted Sister. We talked about them last time.
We did, yeah.
It's an enjoyable album. Sonically, it's my favorite, but the songs aren't quite as strong as some of their other releases.
Yeah.
Crazy from the Heat by David Lee Roth.
Oh man, I didn't think of that because it's an EP and not an album. But speaking of shit that came out and I played to death in 1985, holy fuck! As a little kid, I actually had I still have the vinyl, but I had the vinyl when I was a kid of Crazy from the Heat, and I played the fuck out of that because it's just like so. I mean, it's all cover songs, but it's just like so enjoyable. And I love the music videos that came from it with California Girls and Just a Gigolo. Yeah, I totally just didn't even think about that for 1985, but that was for 7-year-old Steven, like he was all over that EP. I loved it.
Yeah, it's great. And I love that he'd like come out of Van Halen and he decided to do an EP of 4 like show tunes, you know?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. And then immediately followed that up with
Eat 'em and Smile.
Yeah. Which was fucking killer. Theater of Pain, I put it on here because I do find it enjoyable. It's not the strongest of their.
I mean, it's got fucking Home Sweet Home on it, you know. But
and Smoking in the Boys' Room.
Oh well, then yeah, that too.
And I had to put We Care a Lot on here too because it is good. It just barely got edged out of the top 10 slot. Otherwise, it would have been in there because I am the Faith No More guy out of my circle of friends. Yeah,
must be nice to have friends.
It's so funny. Like I have like one close friend left from like every pocket of friends I've ever had, and like I just want to bring them all together in a room and just like make my own Legion of Doom.
Nice.
Yeah,
I know. I got aside from my wife, like my
you'd be included.
Oh, okay, because I would say like the 2 people that I actually consider my friends are 2 people that live in England and I only hang out with on Zoom. But I guess you'd probably put Phil over in Canada. He's a bud too. But that's how antisocial I am. But honestly, absolutely perfect for me because if you gone back to me like, you know, in high school and post high school and said, you can have friends and like never have to go do anything. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up now. Cause I don't want to go do anything. I don't want to have to go anywhere. I don't have to put shoes on. Sometimes I don't even put pants on, you know, if I don't need to.
I'm naked right now.
Yeah. Nobody knows what I'm wearing. Like under this, under my, you know, there's a desk and a mystery happening. Anyway, I'll be on my own OnlyFans.
I thought
it'll still be called Old Head though.
Brilliant.
All right. Well, on that note, you got any parting words?
You got any honorable mentions?
No, I left things off. You mentioned things that I like also from 85, but for the most part, the things that were in my top 10, once they were there, I go, yeah, this is kind of solid. Really, Slayer was the only other one that was kind of, you know, trying to get into the top 10, but in the end, it didn't win out.
Fair.
But yeah. So no parting words for the peeps, for the peanut butter platypuses. Oh no, yeah, we did figure out it's platypuses. I'm saying it right.
Yeah, and don't stick around if you're a peanut butter piece of shit.
Yeah, those people are already gone anyway.
They're the enemy, man. We're gonna get the posse together of the peanut butter platypuses posse.
Oh,
and
the PBPP. Yeah, I mean, why is saying pee-pee still funny? I'm 44. You say pee-pee, it still makes me laugh.
We've devolved so much from like half an hour ago. Like it was like critical analysis of the Back to the Future trilogy. Poop pee-pee. It's one of those things as well where you're like, in situations where you're not supposed to laugh, and then your friend turns to you and goes, "Doo fart." You just go.
It's got my wife and I have become so I don't know what the word is, like-minded with our "that's what she said" jokes, that now we'll be around other adults and somebody will say something and we just glance at each other, don't even have to say it, and we just we know that we both know what needs to be said right there. Anyway, okay. So speaking of that, we're gonna get the fuck out of here. Thank you, Peanut Butter Platypus, everybody. We're gonna be back with a band, two-parter, I believe, starting next week, and it's gonna be a very fun one for me. I have a lot to say about this band, and yeah, so we'll be back next week starting that. Thank you for joining us for 1985. As usual, if you're on YouTube, put some comments and like and subscribe. Go over to Eddie's page, like and subscribe over there as well. If you're listening to this as a podcaster, we love you as well. But you could still go like and subscribe. You don't even really have to go watch it. Just go and like give me the numbers. Come on, man. Come on. Do me a solid. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you very much once again. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to Eddie fucking Sparxx to take us out.
Later, dude! I thought it was a very apt later dude for the era.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect.